Because President Trump this morning on Fox News said that he's deploying federal troops to Memphis, Tennessee. Again, we wanted to play a little bit of that press conference back for you in case you missed it. After President Trump made that announcement, obviously it made all the headlines, especially since this has been a thing in different cities across the U.S. We want to send it now, and I brought this up earlier. Pepper Baker from our content partners in Memphis, Tennessee, ABC 24. Pepper, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us here on the show.
Nope. Thank you for having me.
So you heard and you saw all of that press conference. I just want to get a feel. Give me your takeaways from that press conference and give me some perspective on the city's response.
Yes, so Memphis Mayor Paul Young took a pretty level-headed and very strategic stance here. I mean, he definitely made it clear. A lot of Memphians wanted to know, did you ask for the National Guard? Is it true that President Trump's statement about him being happy about this, is that what he feels? And he was very quick to address that he did not request the National Guard himself. He does not think that it's actually driving crime down, and that he carefully said when our reporter Ezekiel Telemaco asked him if the happy quote was true, he was careful to take a second and he said it was an overstatement. So right off rip, he already said that the mayor doesn't really have a lot of control here over this, that the governor and President Trump are going to be the ones really working on this together. And he's just trying to mitigate it and kind of damage control and find a collaborative approach so that he can give the best benefits to Memphians and make this an advantage for the people here.
So that's what the mayor said. But, and I know this press conference just happened hours ago, but what are folks there in Memphis saying? How are they feeling about this? What's the vibe there in the city?
You might be surprised to actually find the people we've talked to have been a little bit on both sides. Some Memphians feel like they're tired of seeing the violence on their streets. I mean, you heard Mayor Young talk about the recent crime. There was a shooting on the 901 Day celebration, a teenager after the events ended. And then there's been 4 kids who were shot recently within the last week or two in a Hickory Hill neighborhood here. So there's been people who have said, hey, all hands on deck. We've interviewed them. But there's also some who feel like this could accelerate crime or make people a little bit more contentious. The vibe between the National Guard and citizens, there's guns in the streets already. Will you just see maybe a potential breakout of a war, if you will, in the streets? That's worst case scenario here. So by all means, our Shelby County mayor had said that he doesn't think any Memphians want this, but that is not necessarily true. There have been some Memphians who have said they welcome it, they think it'll do well for our city and that we could use it.
I guess the next question is when could we see, or do you know a timeline of when troops could be there? Did the city say anything towards that? Do they know anything? Do they have a timeline?
So Memphis Mayor Paul Young definitely said not overnight. But those are the questions that they're now going to have to work on figuring out. We don't know how soon they'll be here. We don't know how long they could be here for, what the capacity of their power will be, what they will wear, will they be armed, how many will come. Those are all questions Mayor Young was very clear about that he couldn't answer at the press conference today. So those are all the things that he's going to hopefully talk to Governor Bill Lee about and President Trump. But we had a political commentary show that we had some analysts on. And one point to make was they've been talking about this for weeks. We first reported this in early September, if not late August. So if the conversation's been happening for weeks here, how do we still not know what seems to be basic questions? You would think that those things would have been ironed out before the big announcement was made. But all we can go by is what Memphis Mayor Paul Young said, is that those are going to be worked out in the next couple of weeks. And we'll just see what they decide then.
Pepper, one more question before I get you out of here. You've been so generous with your time this evening. Out of response, we've seen it in D.C., we've seen it in L.A. There have been protests, there have been rallies, gatherings, pushing back on federal troops in those cities. Have you heard of anything possibly happening this weekend? Obviously, we don't know when the federal troops will get there, but have you heard of anything from community members, community advocates about anything planned in the city, in Memphis?
We are keeping a close eye on social media groups and the big blogs and all the people we follow here that would probably most likely organize something like that. We haven't seen anything at this moment. Some of the most recent retaliation, if you will, that we've seen, Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris, who I mentioned earlier, not Memphis Mayor Paul Young, had mentioned taking legal action or trying to figure out how he could pursue this legally against, I guess, the Trump administration or Governor Bill Lee to keep them from coming. But no, we haven't heard any gatherings per se now. We haven't heard any uprising potential yet. It's still just around the fact of how this is going to look. I do think this is important to note. Memphis is a little different in this situation than DC and Chicago. You know, we have a Democratic mayor, Paul Young, who is in a state with a Republican governor, who then is, you know, we have a Republican president administration. So he's nuanced in a way where DC's mayor doesn't have that state jurisdiction because it's a territory. So, you know, Trump had a little bit more authority to go in and do as he pleases. Chicago, you have a Democratic mayor with a Democratic governor with the backing of a Democratic governor. So Mayor Paul Young, again, is just kind of hands tied situation. He can't make a lot of decisions on his own, and he's got to figure out and kind of play the parts that Governor Bill Lee and President Trump are putting him in. So that's just all something to consider here, is that it's a little different with Memphis. But as far as your question goes, no, we haven't heard of any outright gatherings happening at this moment. I think people want to wait to see exactly what this is going to look like.
Yeah, and to your point, you make a great point there. It's not just the federal involvement; it's the working relationship between said city and said state's governor when it comes to all of this. Pepper, thank you for your time here on Live Impact News. We'll check in with you at some point as this situation sort of evolves. Again, Pepper, thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Nick.